evening, Gator Nation, and welcome in to another episode of the In All Kinds Weather Forecast. I am your host, Chris Yanes, alongside my co-host tonight, Dustin Smith, who's going to be unveiling, hot off the press, a fresh, updated In All Kinds Weather Forecaster model top 25, along with the prediction for the Charlotte 49ers game this Saturday night in the Swamp. But before we get to all that, I want to make sure that all of you make sure to like the show, subscribe, leave a comment, and review down at the bottom. It helps us reach more Gator fans and bring out more great content to you. Also want to highlight the fact that since we are partnered with the Gator Good Foundation, the Gator Good Foundation will be announcing their winner and the participant for this year's program. Neil will have more updates on that very, very soon. So please stay tuned. If you're listening to that, chances are it may have actually already dropped. So make sure to follow along with the Gator Good Foundation and support it in its effort as it brings one lucky Gator fan to the Arkansas Razorbacks game on November 4th to celebrate Veterans Weekend as well as the first ever all-black game. Dustin, we're going to have you on now. This is the first time we've had you on since the big game, the big victory in the Swamp. We won't dwell too much on Tennessee, but how are you feeling about the Gators after that great win last Saturday night?
I'm feeling great. The big thing that I wanted to see all year, we got the chance to see, and that is explosiveness in the run game. I thought that Trey Wilson, Eugene Wilson, of course, I thought he played phenomenally when he was in the game. Very sad to see him go out with an injury, but he's certainly a weapon. I'm not going to go quite as far as to say that he's the incarnation of Percy Harvin or the reincarnation of Percy Harvin, but he did show some explosiveness, made some big plays running the ball, and I think that really threw Tennessee's defensive game plan off kilter, and it was just enough of a confusion, or it was enough of a difference maker in terms of Florida's offense versus Tennessee's defense that Trevor Etienne took advantage of it with that 62-yard touchdown run, which completely changed the MO in the game. Once the momentum was changed and the Swamp got involved, the rest was history. On the other side of things, our defense played phenomenally. Very proud of how the defensive line played. I thought that from whistle to whistle, from the beginning to the end of the game, they physically dominated Tennessee's offensive line. That was my biggest concern is, we saw how Florida's defense played against McNeese, but I wanted to see how the defensive line played against a quality SEC offensive line. Now, obviously, Tennessee doesn't have a top SEC offensive line, but there's still an offensive SEC. There's still an offensive line with 4- and 5-star talent. So I was very pleased with how the defense played. All in all, very thrilled, very happy. You'll find out with the model that the model likes how Florida is improving. Florida had a big jump in the model, and y'all will see that when you look at it in just a few minutes.
Yeah, no, definitely excited to see that. And one of the things you talk about, explosive run game, we ran for over 180 yards in this game. And certainly, I remember last year, that was your big padlock stat with the team, was how many yards, I think it was 150 yards, if I remember correctly, last season.
Yeah.
And that's certainly something I think this year could hold true once again, as that is our strength and the explosiveness we see with somebody like Trevor Etienne, Montrell Johnson, and even now we've seen with Eugene Wilson. Hopefully, and thank goodness it does appear the injury he sustained in that game is not an injury that's going to threaten him long-term with the team. May not play this Saturday against Charlotte, but probably, hopefully, I think the goal is to get him healthy in time for that trip to Lexington in 2 weeks. But yeah, no, exciting stuff. The Gators are 2-1, and as a result now are officially ranked in the top 25. They cracked the top 25 as of the recording when we recapped the Tennessee podcast. But the Gators are going to be hosting the Charlotte 49ers this week. The 49ers are a 1-2 team coming off. They did win their first game against South Carolina State 24-3, but since then have fallen to Georgia State 41-25 and then Maryland 38-20. The Maryland game's interesting because they actually led in that game for most of the first half, and then Maryland just blew them out in the second half. The 49ers, of course, are led in part by a quarterback some Gator fans might remember in Jalen Jones. Jalen Jones is more of that change of pace running style quarterback. He is complemented by another quarterback who is the more pure passer in Trexler Ivy. Not really, these guys aren't really lighting the stat sheet up thus far in the season. Jalen Jones, almost 200 yards of rushing. Trexler Ivy, a little over 300 yards passing through the air. So nothing that's incredibly threatening. And I think we probably expect that this Charlotte team, historically, they joined the football subdivision back in 2015. Since then, have only had one winning season. They have never defeated a Power 5 opponent. In the lone season, they did have a winning season. They were 7-6 with a bowl loss in the Bahamas Bowl. And like I mentioned, 1-2 entering this game against the Gators. So, FPI, according to ESPN, has the Gators over a 95% chance of winning this game. When we did our season preview, all of us pretty much said 99% chance that Florida wins this game. Of course, as Neil highlighted after last year, the USF result, which this was the same weekend as that, it was a scare. Now, I do think talent-wise, USF is a better team than Charlotte, probably on paper, at least the high school athletes they recruit. But that's why we play the games. We're going to preview it quickly here. Dustin, kind of give the fans an idea, though, of what it means, how you have to game plan for a two-quarterback system when you have a pure passer in Ivy and then a runner in Jones.
Well, I would say they have two quarterbacks. I would not consider them to have a two quarterback system. I think a lot, if you watch Charlotte's offense, for lack of a better phrase, their offense is pretty antiquated. They don't really have interesting concepts in the sense that we see with, what you see out of Oregon or what you see from Ohio State, teams like that. Even Tennessee, their quarterback obviously didn't play like the quarterback they had last year, but Tennessee's offense with Heupel had phenomenal scheme. Okay. We're not going to see the same scheme with Charlotte this week. They run a lot of I formation. They'll get in shotgun a little bit. But what we're really seeing is we're seeing two quarterbacks. Jalen Jones is really a change of pace quarterback. Now, I'm not sure if he's starting. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, considering the game that he's playing in. But it's a two quarterback system in the sense they have two quarterbacks. Now, a lot of Jalen Jones, he's an excellent runner. I'll give him that. Okay, he's thrown 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, about 58% through the air. Ivy's certainly the better passer, 75.8% through the air, 10 yards per throw. So he's certainly the better passer. So when Jalen Jones is in the game, the big thing I'm going to be looking out for is when our defensive line gets that pressure, can we contain Jalen Jones? That's my biggest worry, actually, in terms of their offense. Because not only is Jalen Jones an effective runner, but he's actually the leading rusher on the team. He has 196 yards running on the team, leads the team in rushing. In fact, he has about double the second leading rusher, which is the running back, with 117 yards of total running. So definitely don't want to get him in. Definitely don't want to allow him to get that space. I'm interested to see how we contain him. I'm interested to see how Umamilian. Is that how do you pronounce his name?
Umamilian, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Again, we usually have
Princely.
our resident pronunciator in Neil, but he's not with us right now.
We'll go Princely.
Princely. I'm interested to see how we use him. If we use him properly, contain Jalen Jones, I think we'll do a pretty good job on defense. Obviously, Coach Armstrong is going to coach it up. So what do you think about the defense? What is your mindset on this matchup, Chris?
I obviously want to see just play good, sound, fundamental football on the defensive side, similar to how we played against McNeese 2 weeks ago. You don't want to overthink an inferior opponent when you enter this matchup, but you also don't want to overlook them at the same time, where you, like you mentioned, with a quarterback like Jones, who can maybe bust it out if you don't have, outside contain. and can start running over you. That happened in that USF game last year against South Florida. They were able to run the football effectively, especially with some of those speed options. Now, of course, this is we have a different coordinator. Austin Armstrong has truly taken this program by storm in his scheming, his play calling, and just overall improvement. And I think the fundamentals is the reason why we're seeing such a vast improvement with the Gators. Last year, to this point, we had over 30 missed tackles in the SEC, one of the worst teams actually through the season. Right now, only 19 missed tackles for the first 3 games. It's actually the best in the entire conference, even better than Alabama, even better than Georgia, those traditional SEC defenses that we were used to seeing dominate the stat sheet. Florida has the number 1 defense right now in the SEC for total defense. So clearly they've made some incredible adjustments. They've played 3 fantastic games. It was a coaching clinic last week. What Austin Armstrong did to a superior offensive mind in Josh Heupel, who had Florida's number last year in Knoxville, and 1 year later could not do really anything outside of maybe 2 or 3 big pass plays. Florida played incredibly stout, very disciplined, and that's what I look for in this game, is just to continue to do that, not overlook this team, continue to focus on getting better week in and week out, take this one step at a time, and then you continue to build upon the momentum on all sides of the ball, but especially the defensive side, going into Kentucky, which will be a very difficult matchup next weekend in Lexington. And we as fans we can start looking to future matchups, but this team can't. And I'm just looking to see that they continue to keep the momentum that they've built thus far. And then, the defensive side continue to show that they are just playing sound, good assignment football. So, I think it's one of these games where fans tend to overlook, but clearly the Gator Nation is responding in kind, Dustin, because for the first time since 2015, the Florida Gators announced today that we have sold out the Swamp against a non-Power 5 opponent. Right. The last team to do that was FAU in 2015. I don't know if you remember that one, Dustin. I was a student at the time there at the University of Florida, and that was a rain-filled, soaked Treon Harris-led Gator football team that won 20-14 in overtime. Yeah. That was a stressful game. I don't know if you remember that one. But
oh yeah, I was there.
Yeah, no, it was, if it weren't for a couple of drop passes in the end zone, FAU would have upset the top 10 football team that day.
No question.
Yeah. So that's the last time, though, that Florida sold out versus Power 5 opponent. Before that actually was Appalachia State in 2010, back when Urban Meyer was coach. It's been a long time. Florida consistently used to actually sell out these games, even when it was a bad opponent. It's great to see Gator Nation, Dustin, responding to the success that we've had early on in this season. And it just seems like a lot of momentum in the program right now. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, there's certainly an eagerness. We're doing great on the recruiting trail. I mean, we just got to commit for the 2025 class. Obviously, we haven't really talked a lot about that, but we got an excellent running back, and I look forward to continuing to see our coverage on our recruiting handle. I know you do certainly a great job with that, Chris. Now, something I want to bring up is the idea of sample size. Our defense is doing excellent. They're one of the top in the country, but I would say that our data is solid considering the opponents that we played. Utah, a top 25 team. Tennessee, a top 25 team. Now, obviously, Utah didn't have their quarterback, and Tennessee's a team trending down, but still, I would consider both teams to have top 25 offenses. They're not run-of-the-mill crappy teams. And Florida's defense was not the reason that Florida lost to Utah. Okay. Florida's defense played lights out against McNeese, obviously. And Florida's defense was a big reason why we kept the victory against Tennessee. I know y'all mentioned ad nauseum how concerning it was that we played so conservatively against Tennessee in the second half. But that's okay. Why? Because our defense played so well that it didn't matter. Now, if we played like that a few years ago with a different defensive coordinator that we shall not mention on this pod ever again, we probably would have lost that game to Tennessee. But thank God we have Austin Armstrong at the helm, and thank God we're going to continue to have him at the helm this year. He's going to be – he's amazing. So do you What do you want to talk about, Chris? Do you want to go ahead and pick this game? Do you want to get on the model and then get back on the score for the game? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, let's get into the model. So, Dustin, yeah, this is going to be your, I guess, what, third, fourth model that you've dropped. You had a preseason one, then one after week one after week two, one after week three. So it's the fourth time that you've dropped in all kinds of weather forecaster. And the Gators, we mentioned at the top of the show, were ranked in the top 25 for the AP poll. But now the Gators are coming in on your power rankings in the top 25. And we're going to officially unveil what that looks like. So here we are. Here is our, I don't know. Let's get it up. All right.
There we go.
So there's our top 25. We've got the Gators coming in at number 25, just like the AP poll, up from, I believe, Dustin, was it 33rd in the power rankings last week?
Yeah, they were 33rd last year, and I do expect Florida to have another significant rise this week, as long as Florida plays the way Florida has played. Again, I say it all the time, but my model is a big proponent of the trend line. The intention of a power ranking model is to be predictive. We're not attempting to rank the teams in terms of their strength of record or anything like that. We're basically attempting to pick at the end of the season, what do we expect the top 25 to look like? And really, that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is on a neutral site, one would beat two and everybody else. 24, we expect to beat 25 and everybody else ranked below 24. So for those of you that are listening, we're going to go ahead and go through it super quick. I'm going to start off from the top. We have Ohio State ranked number 1. Now, they're highly suspect. We will find out this week if they stay at number 1. Certainly, we'll get to it later in the show. Something that we've not done yet in the show that this week definitely merits is we're actually going to pick some of the big games this week. We have a lot of top 25 matchups that we're very excited about. And the model doesn't just predict Florida games, but the model also predicts every game in college football. We have the opportunity to literally pick every score in every game in the country. And that's what makes this model so robust and exciting, that we're not just looking at Florida. We're not just looking at the SEC. We're looking at every single team in FBS, and that's exciting. So number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, Georgia. Number 3, Michigan. Number 4, USC. Number 5, Texas. Texas is on the way up. I expect Texas gets another win this week. They'll probably be in the top 3, if not number 1. You got 6, Oklahoma, 7, Ole Miss, who is ranked 1 spot ahead of Alabama. They played this week. We have 9, Florida State, who is on the way down based on the model. Notre Dame at 10, Oregon at 11, Penn State at 12, Washington at 13, LSU at 14, North Carolina at 15, Utah at 16, Miami at 17, Duke at 18, Clemson back ranked at 19, Oregon State is at 20, UCF is at 21, Auburn is at 22, Iowa is at 23, Kansas State at 24, and would you believe it? Florida finally ranked in all kinds of weather forecaster top 25. We have Florida, and Florida's comfortable. Their power rank sits them almost a full point ahead of the number 26th team. You can't see it on the graphic, but I'm just going to say it. The number 26th team is Wisconsin. So that's it for the model. Very excited about what this model is doing, and I'll just say this super quick. It's all about sample size. And not only do I think this model has done a good job in terms of the power ranking, but I think it's done a great job with the score. And when we unveil the score for this week, I think we'll find a score that'll be a lot closer to what the actual score is than what we've even seen in previous weeks. So, Chris, you want to get to it?
Yeah, no, really quick. I just kind of want to go over though, just a couple highlights that I've noticed is that you had Ohio State jump up, but like you mentioned, Jekyll and Hyde, right? They had a big game this weekend, but the first two games not as convincing. They're going to get a big road test this week against Notre Dame, who's a top 10 team. Georgia has been steady. Michigan's been steady in that top four. USC now I think they remain in that top four. And like you said, Texas is one of those teams that is on the rise. I'm intrigued to see what happens with that Ole Miss Bama game. I think that's going to be interesting. Intrigued to see how that Florida State Clemson game goes. Vegas has that as a very tight line this week. Only I think a 2.5
Yes.
point favorite is Florida State on the road.
Yes.
Can Clemson's defense rise to the occasion like they have in the past against this squad, or is Florida State going to take that step forward and beat a team that has kept them from being the team that they used to be, dominant in the ACC? And then I look at a team like a Washington here at number 13, been very dominant on the field. They have not had a close game yet. They are about to enter Pac-12 play. What do they do? Do they rise up? Do they continue to become a contender, especially with a team like Oregon, who also plays Colorado this week, who's not in your top 25, but certainly has been making waves in college football? So big matchups this week. Excited to see where this power ranking goes, but overall, I think it's good to see the Gators back in it again. I know they were in your preseason one, and now they're back in the in all kinds of weather forecaster top 25. So,
Well, speaking of which, let's pick the games.
Yeah. Well,
Let's
okay.
do it.
Let's do it. So, Dustin, you want to go ahead and give us? We're going to pick these games. We're going to pick some games this week. I just mentioned, and then we'll get into the forecast of the Florida Gators versus Charlotte. So, Dustin, what games do you have that you want to have us predict, and then what the model says about those games?
Taking a quick pause. I want to make sure I'm pulling this up. Excellent. So let's start off with Florida State Clemson. So we have number 4 Florida State versus an unranked Clemson team. What are your thoughts?
So number 9, let's go. But number 9 in your power ranking, Florida State versus number 19, Clemson. This is, like I just mentioned, a game where this is if Coach Norvell can get this win on the road, what it's going to do for that psyche of the program, because Clemson has been the boogeyman for Florida State for the last decade. It used to be that Florida State was Clemson's boogeyman, and there was a passing of the torch moment in 2015 when Clemson beat Florida State. They played for the national title that year. And ever since then, Clemson has won this game. They've dominated this game. Can Florida State reclaim that crown? That's the storyline for me in this game. Or does Clemson surprise everybody? The first week of the season, they laid an egg up at Duke, and then they came back, won a game against FAU and I think some FCS team in there. Their defense is good. Their defense definitely can carry them in this game, but how does their offense play against that Florida State pass rush? That's the storyline for this game. Dustin, my prediction for this game is I think Florida State wins. I think they win. I actually think they win rather convincingly. I'm not 100. I think the days of what we remember from Clemson in the last 10 years are over. I think the run with Dabo, he's had a steady decline ever since he played in the college football playoff back in 2020. It's been noticeable. The recruiting hasn't dipped yet too much, but I think at this point, Dabo has not evolved with college football, shall we say. And unfortunately, it's starting to show up on the field. And Norvell has been the complete opposite. Gone in the transfer portal, and now is actually starting to show there's some prowess on the recruiting trail as a top 10 recruiter in the rankings. I think Florida State wins this by 2 scores. That's my prediction.
Wow. That's a bold prediction, Chris. Now, I like what you had mentioned there. We're gonna go forward with sharing the rankings of the team and the forecaster power rankings. So the model actually does like Florida State in it, but barely. Now, part of the secret sauce for this model is we weight every stadium, we weight every matchup. Clemson is notorious for being a successful team at home, right? Their loss this year, of course, was on the road. We like Clemson a lot in Death Valley. Unfortunately, this year, the model doesn't think it's going to be enough. So I have Florida State losing by 2 points. on the road to actually, I have Florida State winning by 2 points, 23-21 on the road at Clemson. So let's get it in another game. Both these teams are ranked in the top 25 in the country of Colorado and Oregon. Colorado is not ranked in our power ranking. Of course, there's some weaknesses in terms of roster building that they have that the model is really weighing them down on, but they certainly look like a team who, when at full strength, and that's key, Colorado looks like a team that could beat almost anybody in the country. However, unfortunately, they are missing their star player in Travis Hunter. He got injured in the previous game, so he's going to be out. We're not going to have him. Also, Colorado's offensive line is suspect, absolute suspect. They're undersized, and they're going to be challenged over and over and over again. Oregon has one of the top defensive lines in the country. Dan Lanning is a specialist in that. So I look for Oregon's defensive line to wreak havoc on Colorado all night. And so I look forward to hearing your analysis, but I think you're going to realize that the score the model's putting out isn't pretty.
Yeah, no, I actually think this is the first time that Oregon takes a pretty big loss, or I'm sorry, Colorado takes a big loss. Oregon's a very good football team, especially offensively, yes. Very high-powered offense. Bo Nix is the complete reformed quarterback since leaving Auburn, going to Oregon last year. We're starting to see, hopefully, that trim with Graham Mertz at Florida. I think that Colorado last week, we saw the chinks in the armor with them. When you get past all the bravado and the swag of Deion Sanders and the team he's formed there, it is special. Winning 3 games already is more than Colorado won last year. But this is a different team that they're playing on Saturday. This is by far the best team that they will have faced this season, a playoff contender, a Pac-12 contender for the championship. I think that Oregon wins rather convincingly. I believe Vegas has them as about a 20-point favorite or so in this game, and I actually think they cover that or get pretty close to covering that. I'm not sure. I'm curious to hear what the model says, but that's my prediction, is that Oregon comes close to covering that 20 points.
Yeah, certainly. I think the model has Oregon winning by 23 points. The score that it's spitting out is 37-14. So it should be an exciting game to watch, especially if you like seeing Colorado get dominated by a team. I know that us Florida fans aren't big time Deion Sanders fans, so
depends on who you ask.
There's a lot of people.
There's some Gator fans that love Deion Sanders. I've talked to a couple, but I think I get from the Florida State days. There's some that still definitely remember what he did to the Gators. So
no, I mean, Colorado's exciting to watch, but this is going to be one of those games that they're going to rather people kind of turn their eyes and look at something else. So let's go ahead and move on. Let's hit up the UCLA Utah game. We'll hit this one super quick. Of course, UCLA is barely not in our top 25. They're actually 27. Utah, of course, is number 16. Utah, of course, beat Florida earlier in the season, and this game is at Utah. Obviously, a big-time home environment for the Gators. What do you think about this game?
UCLA wins. I think this is the game where Chip Kelly gets that signature win on the road. Utah, to me, hasn't really played kind of quite like they did last year. I think they caught Florida at the right time, playing a really bad game. If Florida had that game again, I think that it potentially turns out differently. And I don't think that Utah's looked very convincing in the first couple weeks of the season. I know Utah is a slight favorite at home, but I like UCLA to go in there and win. And I actually like UCLA to win by a touchdown in this game. I think that they are the better team. I think they have Dante Moore has taken over that squad, and he is going to be a force in college football for the next 3 years. That was a huge recruiting coup that Chip Kelly was able to get out there in Los Angeles. So I like UCLA to win this game and to be that formidable foe in the Pac-12 South against USC there, and not Utah.
Before we go any further, got to shout out our merch store. We've got new merch that is comfortable, lightweight for those hot summer days. makes it clear to everyone you come across which team you pull for. From 100% polyester workout tees to soft style cotton tees, sport tech polos, quarter zips, hoodies, beanies, baseball caps, trucker hats, koozies, tumblers, and more in all kinds of weather has just the gear you're looking for this football season. Our In All Kinds of Weather gear is sold in 4 colors: orange, blue, black, and white. And it all features that sleek new alligator logo that pays homage to all your favorite moments in Gator history. So don't wait. Get yours today. Go to inallkindsofweather.com/merch to get yours now. That's inallkindsofweather.com/merch.
All right, so I got UCLA winning, Dustin. What does the model say for this game?
Interesting thought, my friend. Not so fast, in the words of Lee Corso, though. My model has Utah winning by 11. Again, the model is definitely looking at that home field advantage that Utah has had as a stronghold for their team. Also, there is some expectation that Rising will be back. Now, if he is back, how effective will he be? That remains to be the question. Will he have some jitters? He probably will, but I think that Utah's defense is going to be enough, and so the model has Utah winning 28-17. Chris, let's get to it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that Rising, that people have actually thought he was going to play versus Florida and still hasn't played a game yet. But anyway, I digress. Let's get on to the next game.
Well, as you can tell, there's a game that I'm real amped up to talk about. We have Ole Miss versus Alabama. Of course, you heard earlier in the show, Ole Miss is the number 7 power ranked team at Alabama, the number 8 power ranked team. If you would have told me at this point in the season that we would have Ole Miss power ranked higher than Alabama, I would have told you are crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama has looked really bad the last 2 games. They got outclassed and outcoached by Steve Sarkisian and Texas at home 2 weeks ago. Last week, they played a awful game against USF. Basically, the kind of game we played against USF a year ago in the Swamp. They won 17-3. Their defense is still pretty good. They made some plays in that game, especially at the end there. But it was 10-3 until the very end, and then they punched it in to make it 17-3. Alabama, Dustin, has a quarterback problem, and they don't have an answer on their roster. Like Jalen Milroe will likely play this Saturday, as Nick Saban said in his press conference this week, but Tyler Buckner wasn't the answer. Ty Simpson wasn't the answer. They haven't rolled out any of the true freshmen who they recruited last year on the team, and Dylan Lodengranen. We don't know what they've got. And Ole Miss, they don't have a quarterback problem. Jackson Dart is throwing darts. He is the guy that he was last year. Lane Kiffin is in his bag of tricks, calling great plays. He's been looking for this opportunity for a long time. I think Saturday he finally gets it. He beats his old boss. He beats the man that resurrected his career, gave him his opportunity to get back to where he is here in the coaching in the SEC. Ole Miss wins. I think they win close, though. I think this is within a 1-score game, but Ole Miss gets the job done, and Alabama suffers 2 losses at home. Could you believe it? I don't even remember the last time that happened. I mean, we're going to have to go back into the history book and find that one, Dustin, but I got Ole Miss winning this game.
Chris, what a pick. So this is the one time that I'm going to have to go against what my model is saying. So the model has Alabama winning by 3 points. Again, I have to tell you that the model really values home field advantage.
Especially at Alabama, yeah.
Yes. Alabama historically has a strong home field advantage. And obviously when you are the dynasty or were the dynasty that is Alabama, I mean, the model is going to favor what happens at Bryant-Denny Stadium. I mean, it just is what it is. But it has to happen. Lane Kiffin is going to get one on Nick Saban sooner or later. And I think this is the year. So the model has Alabama winning 27-24. I think that Ole Miss is going to get an extra touchdown. and win the game 31-27. So I'm going to go on the record saying my prediction for the game in conjunction with the model. I'm picking Ole Miss to win 31-27. I'm just adding 7 points to their score.
Like that score.
Yep.
I like that score a lot.
So the next game we'll rapid fire through these next two. We have Oregon State on the road. Oregon State is actually number 20 in our model. They've looked pretty good thus far. Good on both sides of the ball.
DJU, the transfer from Clemson, has found a new home.
Oh yeah, and then also Washington. They're playing Washington State. They're at Washington State, so Washington State is at home. Not ranked in the model. I think they're in the 30s, if I remember correctly. What do you think about this game?
This is a tough game. It's a tough one to get a read on. I don't feel like I know enough about Washington State. I know obviously a little about Oregon State and how they demoralized the Gators last year in the Las Vegas Bowl. I just mentioned DJU, the quarterback transfer from Clemson, another guy who decided to go from the East Coast to the West Coast like Bo Nix to an Oregon school and is starting to find some success there. I think he's in a better system. And I'm going to pick Oregon State for that very reason. And maybe that's more of a blind pick, but I like what he's done thus far for them. I think that they have a little bit more of an established program at this stage. And I like Oregon State to win a close game. I'm going to say by 3 points on the road up in Pullman, Washington.
That's an excellent pick. The model gives Oregon State the slight edge, 23-21. And if I had to guess, I would say that Oregon State wins by more. I think DJU has an incredible game. I think he throws some big-time touchdowns. And I think it's close at the beginning. I think there's a little bit of trepidation. It kind of goes back and forth. It's going to be exciting football to watch, but I think when it's all said and done, I think Oregon State pulls out the victory. Now let's hit that final game for our inaugural pick'em for the In All Kinds of Weather forecast. And this is, of course, the game that the entire nation is excited about, and that is the Ohio State Buckeyes versus the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. That is the number 1 team in our power ranking versus the number 10 team in our power ranking. Of course, that number 10 team is at home, and home field advantage is everything. But will it be enough? Chris, what say you?
I say Notre Dame wins this game. They have the home crowd at their arsenal. I think they went in the portal and got one of the best transfer portal quarterbacks in Sam Hartman this offseason, and he's played very well thus far, albeit against teams that aren't Ohio State, certainly not their caliber of defense. But I think Notre Dame's ready for this game. I think Marcus Freeman has been building for this moment, and I think Notre Dame gets a big win at home. I know Ohio State's a slight favorite on the road, but that crowd at night, the Golden Dome, touchdown Jesus, all of it comes together, and they get one of the biggest wins in recent program history. I like Notre Dame to get this win, catapulting them into the conversation for this year's college football playoff. And I like Notre Dame to get this done somewhere around the score of like a 28-23, 5-point game.
Great pick, Chris. I'm going to have to agree with you. The model, I don't think I've ever seen a game this close in the model in the short time that we've run this. Notre Dame is favored by less than a point. The model obviously rounding because you can't score a third of a point in college football. The model has Notre Dame winning 24-23. Wow. If you look historically, if you're going to beat Ohio State, you have to have excellent quarterback play. You have to. Go back and look at history. Every time Ohio State has been beat or upset in recent years, it's been done so at the hands of excellent quarterback play. The exception might be a big-time blunder on the part of Ohio State. But if you're going to beat Ohio State, you have to have excellent play at the quarterback position, and Notre Dame is set up to do it. On top of that, that stadium is going to be rocking. It's going to be rocking like it hasn't rocked in over 20 years. Okay? The Notre Dame Fighting Irish is back, baby, and they're going to have a big time showing against Ohio State, and that's what the model is thinking. So that's it. I think there's one final game that we have to pick.
And that's our own. So let's get right to it. So before
Yes,
we
sir.
reveal what we think is going to happen in this, or the score prediction for this game, Dustin, give me a key. What you want to see in this game, because I think the key to this game really is for Florida not to turn the ball over a bunch of times, and they'll be fine. But what do you
Right.
want to see from this team this weekend in the tune-up game to playing Kentucky next weekend in Lexington?
Absolutely. So, Chris, I think we can both agree that our defense is stout. Our defense is going to play well in this game, and barring some big mental blunders by our defense, I think we should be very comfortable on that side of the ball. The big question with this team, the big question that's pretty much going to remain all year, is going to be the offense. I mean, if our offense plays better or well, I mean, we could beat almost anybody in the country. And that includes Georgia, that includes LSU, that includes FSU. Am I picking Florida to win those games? No. But can Florida win those games? Yes. And what does it come down to? Offense. So what do I want to see this week? I want to see improvement on the offensive side of the ball. I thought we did well running the ball. I thought we had explosive runs against Tennessee, and I expect us to have explosive runs against Charlotte. But the thing that I want to see, the thing that is super critical in my mind, is how do we throw the ball? Graham Mertz is excellent. He's accurate. He's done everything I've asked him to do, but I still have yet to see creativity in the pass game. I want to see Pearsall get the ball in his hands. I want to see Aiden Mazzell get the ball in his hands. Okay, I want to see our receivers. Arliss Boardingham, if I'm not mistaken, he's listed as a starter. I want to see him get the ball in his hands. We need to be creative throwing the ball. We need a strong downfield passing game, because I'm going to tell you exactly what Charlotte is going to do defensively. They're going to load the box, and they're going to dare Florida to throw the ball downfield. And if we don't get creative throwing the ball, it's going to be 5 yards there, 7 yards here, and it's probably going to be a game that's going to have an even lower score than what we're going to predict. But if Florida can throw the ball around the yard, if we can get creative throwing the ball, not only will it give Kentucky something to look at and something else to think about, and put them in a position where they can't just load the box and stop the run game, but it'll showcase that Florida is improving in a very critical phase of the game. So definitely I want to see Florida improve the pass game, and that includes, I want to see Graham Mertz continue to be efficient. No interceptions, obviously, but no interceptions.
Yeah, no, I agree. Play a clean game on offense, and I like that. Getting that downfield passing game going, because Kentucky, we've seen how they beat us the last couple of years. They load the box, they stop the run. We have not run the football very well against Kentucky the last several meetings. That's got to change this time around if we're going to beat them next weekend in Lexington. And that starts, like you said, with getting a better offensive passing game down the field, to at least put it on tape that teams now have to respect that possibility. And I think that what we did against Tennessee offensively was great, but some of it's not repeatable, and teams are going to adjust to it. And if you don't establish a downfield passing game, they're going to key in on Mertz, and the third down per conversion percentage that we saw in the first half isn't going to be there again. And that's when you're going to have to even rely more on your defense. So I think it's better for Florida to get that going. For me, the big key is I want to see, or the thing that I want to see is just, I want to see freshmen play more. I want to get down the depth chart, get those guys, continue to get them experience. Guys are already doing that naturally because of how young our roster is, but just really get down. Like you mentioned, guys, get Aiden Mizell in there, more TJ Searcy, more Kelby Collins, all the way down, Will Norman on the defensive line. I want to really just get down to the bottom of the depth chart, so everybody gets that in-game experience. And I also want to get healthy. Eugene Wilson, I don't think is going to play Saturday. Kingsley is also not playing Saturday. Mascoa is sitting out for a half at least in this game. Let's just get these guys healthy, because this is the last true cupcake game we play really for the rest of the season. We're about to go on a pretty incredible 3-week run, 2 games on the road. after this one, before we have that bye week when we play Georgia and Arkansas and LSU, and then eventually Florida State to finish the season, this is the time to get healthy, because if we can really get on a run here and ring off 3 more victories after hopefully beating Charlotte on Saturday night, imagine going into that Georgia game 6-1. We talk about it. It may not happen. We don't know, but it's a possibility, like Dustin's talking about. And if it starts with getting healthy, in my mind, to be ready and fresh for that Kentucky game and that trip to Lexington next weekend. So that's what I want to see. Get healthy and get the freshmen involved. So, Dustin, it's time for the score prediction. And all right, I'll go ahead and just throw your score up, because I think that it is it's a little crazy. So, Dustin, you got that now?
Yeah, 30-6.
38-6.
38-6. The model does not think that Charlotte is going to score a touchdown. The model does think that Florida is going to score a lot of points, but the model does not think that Florida is going to score points like we've seen Florida score in the past against teams like Charlotte. Chris, do you have any thoughts on that? I know that if I remember correctly, your score is something in that same ballpark.
It's very close. And Dustin, and he can confirm this. Before we went on the show tonight, I said, dang, I was really shocked how close we were. I've had the score in my head at least for maybe a week now, just because I kind of have a feeling of how it'll play out. I think the Gators win 38-7. I got Charlotte scoring a touchdown. The way I think this game plays out, though, is that Florida is up like 38-0 in the fourth quarter, and they've gone deep down into the defensive depth chart, and Charlotte gets a touchdown late in the game, similar to how what happened with McNeese. But I think overall, Florida's defense plays stout. They have a chance for a shutout in this game. But I think that Billy is really going to probably get a big lead early and sit on the ball like he did against Tennessee to keep the guys healthy and fresh for Kentucky. So that's also kind of playing into my prediction here too. I would love to see a 40 burger. Hell, I'd love to see a 50-60 burger. I mean, we're definitely capable of doing that if we go full go for 60 minutes. I just don't think we will, because I think Billy's got his eye on some bigger things down the line in the schedule. So my prediction is 38-7. Do you deviate from the model, or do you think that's your official score prediction?
Well, I mean, there's certainly time to think about it. I know last time coming into the game, the last time being the McNeese score, we came into the game and I went ahead and changed my pick just a little bit, considering that the model wasn't quite understanding the lowering in possessions. A big proponent of the model score output is points per possession, but there's a baseline assumption for the number of possessions that take place. Most teams are losing at least one possession, if not 2 possessions, in comparison to their average possession total the previous year. So taking that into an effect, if this game was played last year, for example, with 2 identical teams, maybe Florida does score 50, 52, 53, 55 points, but that's probably not going to happen this week. Now, if Florida scores 50 points, would I be surprised? No. I think Florida's capable of putting that type of score, but will Florida play their starters long enough to score that many points? Probably not. I think you're right. I think we have a 31-0 type of affair going into the second half. And I think by the time we get into the Tom Petty, I think it's already going to be 38-0. And I think that Charlotte will score something. I mean, somehow, some way, they're going to get down the field and they're going to score something and break Austin Armstrong's heart once again, destroying that shutout. Now, if we shut them out, man, I will be the most pumped person in the swamp, because I love them double zeros on the scoreboard for the opponent. So, Chris, I know that we could talk about this for a long time. There's actually a lot of stuff with the model that we did not break down. We're going to hold off on that. My model did update the season prediction for the Gators. We'll hold off on that.
Yeah,
My model also has given us a likelihood to beat at least one of the teams that a lot of people are predicting Florida to lose big to toward the end of our schedule. So we'll save that. We'll keep listening to the In All Kinds of Weather forecasts. What say you, Chris?
Yeah, no, I love that. Keep listening to the All Kinds of Weather forecast. Make sure if you like this content to hit that like button below if you already haven't. Leave us a comment, review at the bottom, and subscribe to the show. Share with your friends because Dustin's going to keep putting out some great model content, and we'll keep bringing you all sorts of recaps and previews as the season goes on. So excited for this game back in the swamp again Saturday, celebrating Tom Petty on Tom Petty Day. That has become one of the great traditions in college football the last couple of years, but even more so now that we have that new awesome light show to accompany it. So definitely make sure pack the swamp once again, and let's have fun on Saturday. So, and as one final reminder, make sure to head over to our merch shop on allkindsweather.com/merch, where you can buy t-shirts, polos, hoodies, ball caps, and more. Just make sure to go to allkindsweather.com/merch and buy yours today. Make sure you get that orange for Kentucky next week as well as this week, as we're supposed to all wear orange in the swamp. And a reminder, one more, the Gator Good Foundation will be announcing its winner very soon, if not already by the time you have heard this or watched this. So please make sure to go check it out and support that endeavor as we help one lucky Gator fan experience their first game day in the swamp against Arkansas on November 4th. So from all of us here at the In All Kinds of Weather forecast, I was your host, Chris Yanes, alongside my co-host, Dustin Smith. Go Gators, and let's beat the Charlotte 49ers.
Let's do it one game at a time.